Oh, here we go. Good morning. Okay, so we've got a lot to go over this morning. Of course, with Venezuela happening, there is a ton going on. We're not going to focus solely on that, but that's going to be the majority of what's going on out there. So we'll see what's going on. We are going to start um, by notifying my TikTok viewers because they.
Take a picture and let TikTok pick the song.
No. Um, oh, no, 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 no. No, go back. Just a photo. We'll get started here in just a minute because I was unprepared for this. And we need this going. Yeah, so Twitch, YouTube, politics, live. Yeah, okay. And news. And I want this on my story, just story. No, I don't care about content. Okay, save to drafts. Let's go here. Can't I just add to my story? Yes, add to story right there. There we go. I don't want sound. There we go. Oh, did that add to the story? All right, you know what? We're just gonna do this as well. All right, let's turn this phone off. Okay, let's get going. Okay, so we got a lot to go over as you can see up here. Woo, we got a lot. All right, so we're gonna go over VA first. Okay, VA. Veterans who work in this is Texas primarily. So veterans who work in Texas VA health system, the dam's gonna break. So this article focuses on people who are veterans and who work at the VA, serving veterans as well. So, da da da. Yep, yep, yep. All right, backlog. So this is a switchboard operator, uh, Marlon Eskew, who's spent 15 years in the armed forces, saw combat Desert Storm, worked as a system's central teleoperator and then supervisor, connecting thousands of veterans who call each day to the system's Temple and Waco hospitals. It's pretty big. It's 6 clinics. So he does a lot, right? 24, 25. He told the Texas Observer that backlogs started to overwhelm the system. No surprise. He said he had just 5 employees under him to handle like 7 to 10 hospitals and clinics. Some veterans became so frustrated that they threatened to kill themselves or this telephone operator. So as a veteran himself and a VA patient, Eskew said he also seeing delays in getting appointments. A few years ago, he got surgery within a month of being diagnosed with throat cancer. Recently, had to wait more than 2 months just to get an MRI for another problem. I'll go into this here in a little bit, but I can talk about this as well. He attributes the current slowdown, at least in part, to Trump administration's decision to just shrink the VA workforce. Um, okay, so if you don't know, Republicans and Trump and MAGA say that they love veterans, but they really don't. They just do that to get the military to vote for them and veterans to vote for them, which unfortunately a lot of veterans and a lot of military did vote for Trump, and it is horrible. Okay, so Texas has more than 830,000 veterans enrolled in the VA healthcare system, the most of any state. I am one of them. some 34,000 employees. So you have 34,000 people to take care of 830,000 veterans. And 45% of those workers are veterans themselves. So almost half of the workforce are veterans taking care of veterans. Uh, Now, Biden, he did a whole thing like the PACT Act, which was really cool. It was a thing the previous, so if you've never been deployed, garbage doesn't get thrown out in a dumpster or in a dump or a trash pile, somewhere, a landfill. It doesn't get dumped like that. What happens is they dig a big ass hole, they dump all the trash in, and they light the shit on fire. And then they just keep that going. If you have trash, you take it there, you throw it in, and it gets burned. These are called burn pits. These burn pits, we we threw everything in there. There was nothing that we didn't throw into these burn pits. So you can imagine if you were exposed to these burn pits, all of the nasty stuff that we would throw in there that we didn't want anymore, to that the chemicals and the in the air and in the smoke and everything else that's coming off these, uh, everything that's burning, are going to be bad for you. I've been exposed to it. I know a lot of people that have a lot of issues. Well, the Congress and the presidents prior were not willing to admit that these burn pits were damaged and hurt people. Very, very much the same as the Agent Orange debacle in Vietnam and everything else, where they said, no, it can't be these chemicals. We didn't do this. We don't want to pay for it. Well, the PACT Act, um, uh, with the Biden administration, finally recognized that burn pit exposure caused damage to people's lungs and everything else. So that was a big one. Um, this and He also increased staffing and expanded the VA healthcare system. This process was suspended when Trump administration froze hiring. We all heard about that on March 4th as part of larger efforts by DOGE, which we now know did not save any money, is actually costing the taxpayer billions of dollars to shrink the federal workforce. The VA, so if you didn't know, the VA is headed by a total MAGA Trump loyalist who gives zero shits about about veterans. Um, Wanting to revert to 400,000 employees, meaning that they were going to cut 83,000 jobs within the VA healthcare system, which was already struggling to handle all of the veterans that were there. So after 9/11, there was a huge surge in enlistments and officers joining the military because of 9/11, right? Patriotism came forth and blah, blah, blah. I was one of those. I joined in right after 9/11. I was in the recruiter's office on the afternoon of 9/11, and I was in basic training in January of 2002. So, happened real quick. Um, so, now, if you don't know, government jobs, especially at the VA and stuff like that, they, uh, one, they don't pay very well. That's a government job. That's one of the things that you accept. But two is that they have jobs for people like a an escort, okay? And this escort is there basically with a wheelchair, and they take patients from, maybe they have to go to get an x-ray or an MRI, but they can't walk. Well, you don't want a nurse who is a highly trained medical professional and has other patients to take care of. You don't want them to have to take time out of their day, and that they're actually doing critical patient care on critical patients. You don't want them to have to leave those patients. So you have a person who goes and says, okay, they're trained to transport these patients to their appointments, such as, like I said, MRIs, X-rays, CT scans, whatever, and they take them there and then they bring them back. That's their job. It's not They're not getting paid $1 million a year or anything else. They're lowest on the flagpole. I've been transported by them before, as recently as this year, and they're great people. They're great conversationalists. They're awesome to talk to. Usually they're a bit older, and so because they can't do heavy lifting, they can't do a bunch of jobs that otherwise you might need a higher level of education for, or what else. But they still want to serve. They still want to help out. And so they're there, great people, and they are saying that these types of people providing these types of services are not fit for duty. not fit for federal jobs. Okay, so federal jobs, unless you are doing something like super high tech, super high on the intelligence scale where you need like a lot of you need a PhD or some shit, right? Or a doctorate or something like that. Federal jobs are not made for the smartest people in the world. They're not. That's why a lot of veterans go do them because and it transitions fantastic for veterans. You join the military, you spend 20 years doing a specific job in the military that does not transition well to the civilian world, and but the VA, especially medical, has a job that's very similar to it. Your qualifications transfer over. I can tell you qualifications don't always transfer over. This whole talk of people who transition from the military to the civilian life and go to making big bucks and everything else, those are primarily officers or senior enlisted. So if you're not up there, you're not making shit when you get out. I can tell you when I got out and trying to find a job with the qualifications that I had getting out of the military is phenomenally difficult to actually support yourself. Government jobs, federal jobs that do not require a lot of knowledge right off the bat, or that they might transition straight from your job in the military into a federal job that does the same exact thing, just you're in a suit and tie or you're in civilian clothes rather than a uniform, are fantastic. And they help out a ton of veterans who actually might have issues such as PTSD or other things. These federal jobs are filled, as you can see. The VA is almost half staffed by veterans. These veterans understand other veterans and the problems they're going through. It creates an environment that is great for veterans to still contribute to society, still work, still give back. So it's super important that we have these jobs. But the this Alina Haba said that some veterans were not fit for federal jobs, and so they started back, um, cutting jobs, which it just is decimating the VA. Something fierce. So Jessica Jacobson, a VA spokesperson based in Dallas, reiterated that the July announcement is due to voluntary departures. The VA won't be conducting a large scale. So basically, they went and this came out, and veterans said, "What the fuck are you doing?" A lot of other people did too. Said 350,000 mission critical VA are exempt from the hiring freeze. So does that mean that we have 350,000 slots to fill of mission critical employees? Like, come on. Um, VA speed of response is virtually unchanged. Okay, so let's talk about that. Speed of response. So here's the timeline. I broke my hand in 2025, beginning of 20, in the end of April of 2025, broke my hand. Okay, broke the fifth metacarpal right here, just popped the top right off. Boop. Motorcycle incident, no big deal. It was my fault. It happens. Scraped up my leg, damaged my knee a little bit. No big deal, right? Like I went and I was walking, I was talking, I was perfectly fine, but I knew something was wrong. Hand swelled up, all of that. So went to the ER in the VA, and when I went to the VA ER, I told them, "Hey, I was in a motorcycle incident. I wasn't an accident. I didn't go down. I had anything else." So went to the VA and told them I had a motorcycle incident. They said, "Okay, cool. Yeah, hand's probably broken. Leg's fine. I had washed it out already. I'd scrubbed it. I'd done it before. As far as when I was a medic doing wound care was no big deal. So I did it to myself. It hurt, but that's how it goes." So this is end of April. I was in the ER for 3 hours. They x-rayed my hand within 30 minutes of me getting there, and then I literally sat in the doctor's office for 2.5 hours waiting for them to figure out what the fuck they were going to do with me. It was very clear that my hand was broken. It was a very clear break. So 3 hours after I get there, they say, "Okay, well, here's a soft brace, and we are going to send you to the orthopedic hand surgeon, and you see him in a week." I was like, "Cool, let's go!" Right? Like this is what I want to see. When finally I went there on Friday, a week after this happened, and the surgeon went and said, "No surgery. I'm gonna manually set this." So he went and he injected all around my wrist, right, to block my hand nerves with anesthesia. Okay, block my hand. He said he was gonna manually set this bone, the entire crown of my fifth metacarpal was broken off. So my pinky was basically not connected to my hand at all at this point. Um, so he went and he did that. And when he did this, this was the hand surgeon, by the way, I found out later. After he went and after he uh, numbed me up, he came over 15, 20 minutes later and he went and he started manipulating. I said, hey, that's not numb. And he did it anyway. He tried to reset my finger without it being numb, and it was painful. I about peed my pants. But he went and he did his best. On the way out, he went and he said, are we still friends? You're not angry at me, blah, 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 because he had done nothing. So I went and he said, okay, we'll see you back here in a month. Stay in the brace, but we're not going to do surgery. They made me a special brace, custom for my hand. They said, just stay in the brace for a month and come back. So I sat here with no use, basically, of my left hand. I had three fingers. That's it. For a month. I sat and did as much as I could, but it was basically nothing. With that, we went and well, I went back after a month, and there was no doctor. So the day before my appointment, I'd waited a month for this appointment. The day before, they called me. The VA said, and the VA called me and said that they could not see me because the doctor was going on leave. He was taking vacation for 2 weeks. So I went and I said, no, that's bullshit. I'm not going to deal with this. Give me another doctor. So I went in and I went to see this other doctor. And this was about a 45-minute phone call, by the way, of me trying to make sure that I could still be seen. So I went in, I saw the other doctor, and he said, you should have had surgery. Um, so do you want us to schedule for surgery here at the VA, or do we want you to do you want to go out into the community care, civilian doctor? The year prior to that, or about 6 months prior to that, I had had hernia surgery, and the VA totally fucked it up and caused nerve damage, and that will be there forever, and caused all sorts of other muscular issues when they did my hernia surgery. And so I said, send me out to the community, no big deal. They said, okay. So we are now in June, okay? And a week after, they say they're going to send me out. They said put the referral in the system. They're going to send me out to the community. They send me the email and say, hey, here is the doctor we're going to send you to, the orthopedic surgeon we're going to send you to fix your hand. I said, great. It's close to me. It's 20 minutes away. The problem is the hospital that they're sending me to is a total shit hospital. We've had bad experiences with them, with my children, with the ER there, all sorts of things. We've had bad experiences. So I'm like, well, maybe this is just somebody who's kind of, contracting there, or he's there. I live in a rural area, so they don't have, orthopedic surgeons on staff. They're basically contracting these orthopedic surgeons go around and do their thing, right? So I look it up. They are sending me to an orthopedic surgeon who specializes in knees. This is a knee surgeon that they're sending me to fix my hand. Now, if you don't know, hands are very dexterous. If you don't know, the if you lose your pinky, then you lose about 50% of your grip strength. Now, as I said earlier, this is from a motorcycle thing. I ride motorcycles. This is my clutch hand. I have to be able to pull in the clutch with this hand. If I lose 50% of my grip strength, that's going to be a severe limiting factor. Plus, I wanted to get back into the gym. Grip strength is a big thing in the gym for a lot of lifts. So, all of this stuff is going on. Um, and I call back to the VA and I say, hey, you can't send me to a knee surgeon for hand surgery. And they say, okay, we'll do this. We totally get it. Do you have anybody you want to go to? So now they don't even have a list of people to send me to, apparently. So I go and I Google best hand surgeons in San Antonio, and I give them the top three that I can find offhand. So this is June. We're now close to the middle of June here. Okay. Middle of June, I am getting a new referral to an actual hand surgeon. I wait a week and I say, okay, I'll give them 10 days. I'll wait a weekend. I call back after middle of the next week. So we're now in July. Okay. And they say, oh, yeah, there was a little mix up. We're getting it worked out. We'll call you back. the lady on the phone, she was pretty helpful. She said we're going to resubmit, and you should hear back from us in 7 to 10 days. I said, okay, cool, I get it. Administrative shit happens. I'm not doing anything. I'm sitting here. I got my brace on my hand. It's not like I can do anything anyway. Um, After that, they went and she I waited with the 7 to 10 days. I waited 10 days. I usually give them the benefit of the doubt. When they tell me 7 to 10 days, I assume it's going to be 10. So with that, I go and I set it up, and they call me again and say, "Okay, so I'm looking at this now. We're all right, mid to late July now." And they call me back and they say, "Okay, we're looking at this, but I don't see on your referral where you had your choices on who you wanted to go see." And I was like, "What the hell? Like, I just did that, right?" Anyway, so I give them back my choices again, saying, "Hey, it's the VA. This is normal government shit." Okay, after being in the military and everything else, working with the VA, I've been at the VA for 10 years at this point. This is normal government crap. With that, this normal government crap, I give them another 10 days. Okay, so we're in August now. I broke my hand at the end of April. May, June, July. We're at 4 months that my hand has been broken, and it's basically almost healed. Okay, um, so finally, I go and I call them back after another 10 days. We're middle of August now. And they say, "Oh, well, the person who did it last time messed it up, so we've got to do it again." Okay, I say, "You got 1 week, and I'm done." Okay, then I'm filing a complaint. Now, it's been 4 months since my hand broke, and I'm still waiting for surgery. About a week passes, and I call them back. And they go and they say, "Well, sir," and I say, "Stop, don't talk. I need you to refer me to your supervisor immediately." And remember, we're almost in September now. And so I say, "I need you to refer me to your supervisor immediately. I am not going to deal with you. You guys have messed this up for months." So they go and they say, "Okay." They say, "Well, a supervisor will call you back." I say, "That's fine. Here's how it's going." So the next day, they have 24 hours to return the call. The next day, the next morning, the supervisor calls me back. He says, "I'm extremely sorry, blah, blah, blah." He says, I'm prioritizing this. We're going to get it up and running." He said, "It won't take 7 days." I said, "We'll have something for you by the end of the day." I said, "Okay, thank you." He continued to apologize profusely and the whole 9 yards. Um, then by the end of the day, I finally get my referral to a hand surgeon, a civilian hand surgeon. We're at the end of August now. I call the hand surgeon's office the next day and to schedule an appointment. And they say, "We haven't got a referral yet." They said, "Give it about 48 hours for it to process through the system and everything else." I say, "Okay, cool." So I wait another 2 days. Remember, always give them an extra day or whatever. If they say 7 to 10, assume it's 10. So I went to them and said, um, I call them back, say, "Hey, I need to schedule an appointment." They say, "Yep, we got it right here. No problem." They look in the system. And when they go and they do this, they say, "Our next appointment is not," we're in August. They said, "Our next appointment is not until October." And I say, "Well, shit, I've been already waiting." They say, "We understand. We can't do anything, blah, blah, blah." So they say, "But we can get your, if you want to come in earlier, we can always call you." I say, "Okay, that's fine. I have no problems being a walk-in or a last-minute thing." I said, "But these are my hours, and it takes me an hour to get there, an hour to get home. I got priorities I have to be there for, right?" They said, "No problem. We'll work with you. We'll do what we can." So that's fine. I don't get any calls, but I finally go in. The doc sees me, I get more x rays and everything else. And she says, "You should have been in surgery months ago. We're going to get you in right away." So this is October. And they get me in. They say, "We can have you in a week and a half. We have a spot. We can get you in, have your surgery done. It takes, no time at all. And we will get you in and out. Boom, you're done." I say, "No problem, cool." So by the end of October is when I finally get my hand surgery. So when they're talking about this whole VA speed of response and the number of calls received is unchanged, even though the number of calls received is increased, I can tell you for a fact that's a total mess. You got to think. So April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November. 7 months. 7 months to get surgery on my hand that should have been done almost immediately because of the way that so when it broke, um, the bone rotated 90 degrees. So when I made a fist, my pinky was actually over my knuckles. When I would do this and bring it in, this pinky would go and turn and would be over the knuckles um, here. So it was completely rotated, right? So I was going to lose basically all grip from that pinky because of that rotation. They had to go in. I now have a pin in my hand that goes to they had to, because it had been so long, they had to re-break my hand. They had to scrape off all of the old scar tissue and build up on the bone and everything else. They had to rotate it, they had to reset it, and they had to put a pin all the way down. So now I basically have my this fifth metacarpal now has a pin all the way through it to stabilize the entire thing. So it yeah, I didn't gain full function of my hand back until the end of December. I just got clearance to do any exercises that require grip, and I go and I have to do my daily uh, exercises and physical therapy and stuff at home and all that. So regularly, and I used to do this thing. It goes up to like 230 pounds or something like that, 220 pounds. I used to be able to do this all day, no problem, um, with both hands on the max setting. And now I'm at half again. Uh, it really, really screwed up my hand strength. So, uh, yeah, that's where we're at as far as that. So when they say, let's get back onto this. But yeah, that's the story of this year, recent, that I can tell you they are not handling things well over there. All right, so David Pena, a 50-year-old VA worker, was born into a military family, blah, 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 blah. Most military families, by the way, or most people in the military come from military families. It's a tradition. It's just something you do. All right, 2002, discharged with back injuries. That's 23 years ago, 24 years ago. Later in life, left him unable to walk. So if you don't know how the VA pays people, the VA pays for potential life problems. Okay, so it's going to pay for what is most likely going to affect you in 10, 20, 30, 40 years. So they pay me max for my knees because while my knees aren't super bad right now, they are going to get worse. Guaranteed, no questions asked. They're going to get worse. Um, so let's see here. Uh, this man is a VA worker. My kids don't know me running down the street with them or racing with them, so he's kind of robbed of that. Yep, my kids don't. They know that dad doesn't run because his knees. He said friend he served developed cancer or heart disease. Yep. He wanted to assist other veterans, so he started work as a medical technician at the Austin VA clinic in 2012. Yep. So he wants to give back, right? These are veterans who have already given tons and tons and tons, and they still want to give and they still want to help their brothers. And that's what being a veteran is about. So he sees about 60 patients a day. He tries to understand each one of the veteran with their own story, but he says that his department lost 2 supervisors this year. So in the last 6 months, is Elon and Doge painted a picture of federal workers as lazy bureaucrats? Yep. So it's just because Elon Musk is the fattest, laziest piece of shit out there. Him and Trump are like peas in a pod. So Trump administration publicly promised to provide better care to our veterans is a total lie, right? Like he's not providing anything. They're not doing anything to help. Um, so Kelly Rowland is a veteran and VA nurse. She says, I'm not seeing that. She started working at Temple Mental Health Rehabilitation. Okay, so now we're going to get into mental health. Whew. So, as a night shift charge nurse, on any given evening, she and a team of 5 other nurses have to attend to 80 to 90 mostly homeless veterans suffering from PTSD. If you don't know, most homeless people have mental health issues, which is a lot of times why they are homeless. Substance abuse, communicate with law enforcement, and de escalate conflicts. At the start of the year, she said she had 40 nurses for all shifts, including registered and LVNs. Okay. But since January, 5 nurses left because managers have been coming down hard. Instead of hiring new nurses, Rose said the hospital transferred nurses in from other units, so they're robbing Peter to pay Paul. She says we were helping less veterans than before COVID. So the Mental Health Rehabilitation Center has 2 nurse practitioners and 1 psychiatrist. She says it's difficult to attend new patients within 48 hours of admission. Some wait a week or more to be seen. A lot of veterans come in, feel like they're not getting care that they need, so they leave, which just exacerbates the problem, right? Um, so mental health rehab patients are seen as timely. This is the 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 spokesperson for the VA. She says, and each patient is assessed within 24 hours of arrival. But here you have somebody who actually works there saying that they don't. Um, she had the VA is currently recruiting nurses to fill vacant positions, and said that the Temple Hospital reduced staff beds in the medical surgery not due to low patiency occupancy rates, not because of any staffing issues. So let's look at this. She says that each patient is assessed within 24 hours of arrival. Assessed by who? She does not say. Are they assessed by a mental health professional, or are they assessed by a just any random doctor? Because there is a difference. Um, so she says they're currently recruiting nurses because the nurses are leaving because fuck these guys. That's what they're saying. She says they've reduced the beds due to low patients occupancy rates, not because of any staffing issues. But this nurse who actually works there says a lot of veterans come in and feel like they're not getting the care that they need, so they leave. So that it's a low patient occupancy rate because the staffing issues are so low, right? If you go into somewhere to get seen and you can't get seen and you leave, well then yeah, it is a staffing issue because you can't get seen. But this person is spinning it, saying that these beds are empty and they lowered the amount of beds, not because of staff, but because of low patients. Well, of course you have low patients because you don't have the staff to see them, so they're leaving. Yeah, this person, this Jacobson, is a piece of shit. Dallas based, yeah. Um, it's absolutely horrible. Uh, so in the end, Roland herself, okay, so this nurse suffered a military-related injury, said she opts to use her husband's health insurance because she sees how veterans are being treated, how they fall through the cracks, or how everyone was just overworked and burnt out. Others don't have that option. Sure, I was on a very bad downhill slide before my wife insisted I go see her doctor, civilian doctor. I went and saw her doctor, and within 2 weeks, I was doing better. She identified my problems. She ran the necessary testing, of course, blood work, urine, psychiatric evals, and everything else. I told her all the meds I've been. I told her my history as a new patient, and she had figured things out. And within 2 weeks, I was doing better. I cannot get in to see my VA doctor except at my 2 yearly scheduled appointments. I can request an appointment. They will call to see what the problem is, or they will email me on my Healthy Vet program, and they will 100% do everything they can to avoid bringing me in. So I don't get seen unless I absolutely have to by the VA. So I have to go to my wife's or my doctor now too, but my civilian doctor. Luckily, I'm covered through my wife's insurance through her work. But if I wasn't and had to rely on the VA, I'd probably be dead right now. They misdiagnosed or refused to diagnose diabetes for 2 years. And it took one time at my wife's doctor, and she said, "You're about to go on insulin unless you can fix this." So it was big deals. So she said this nurse says workers like her end up dealing with guilt on top of stress. She said, what can we do but apologize and keep trying harder? Even though we're trying, it's like we're spinning in our wheels. So everybody's feeling it, from the nurses to the providers to the psychiatrists and to the veterans. Exactly. And that's how it goes. So it's a really bad thing that's going on. So I just don't uh, it's it's one of those things that it's not going to get better. It's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. So, um, yeah, unfortunately, veterans are getting wrecked, and it's a very bad thing that they are. So, all right. So this next one, we're going to start getting into Venezuela a bit, and listen and see all of these things that yeah, people are talking about. So let's go and listen to Pete Hegseth here, because we know he is a total, yeah.
Is it about freedom or is it about oil? At the press conference today, President Trump seemed to indicate that both were a factor.
freedom, security, prosperity. Of course, there are what was done by Venezuela against American oil interests, oil companies, is well understood. And
Venezuela has no requirement to do anything about American oil companies, none whatsoever.
Never should have happened, and President Trump is willing to recapture that. But it's also the security of our hemisphere. If people understood what Venezuela was trafficking in with other adversaries, weapons they were trafficking, and then, of course, the drugs.
Venezuela is not even in the top 5 of drug traffickers or drug trafficking countries. They're basically not even on the radar, so that's a false flag.
And the cartels, the poisoning of the American people, the violence, Tren de Aragua that have been brought to our shores, all three of those combined together in this bold and courageous action from President Trump. He takes nothing off the table. So what happens next will be in the hands of Venezuelans to decide.
No, it's not.
But ultimately, America will benefit security-wise and with prosperity, and we believe the Venezuelan people can as well.
You know, Mr. Secretary, today at the press conference, you said, and I'm going to say it slowly so I get it right, Maduro effed around and found out. And that's obviously a message not only to Maduro, but to many American adversaries around the world. And it comes on the heels of President Trump saying that U.S. intervention in Iran would be possible if Iran kills protesters. It comes as Secretary of State Marco Rubio says Cuba should possibly be worried tonight. What's next here? What's the message? Who did you have in mind when you said F around and find out globally?
Well, I referred also to the Iranians and their nuclear capabilities. The president said they will never get a nuclear bomb. The Iranians didn't believe it.
Okay, so they're pivoting. Now they're going to threaten other countries, just like they did with the same action that they did in Venezuela. And don't get it twisted. Venezuela is all about oil. It's not about anything else. 100%.
He acted. He said the same thing about Maduro. He acted. He said the same thing with the Houthis. He acted. Southern border acted. We're going to do something about drugs. He's acting. We're acting with striking drug boats.
There's no proof that those were actual drug boats. They destroyed all the evidence that could prove them right or wrong.
President of action. And you don't get peace in this dangerous world without strength. So there's been a lot of...
There's a difference between strength and projecting strength and violence. Okay? So as Benjamin Franklin said, speak softly and carry a big stick. What he meant by that was we should use diplomacy with the threat of violence, ultimate violence, behind you, so that people know that, hey, this could happen. But you don't go to violence first. You always try diplomacy. You always try and work things out first before you resort to violence.
Politicians that want to talk. They want to talk peace. They want to talk diplomacy. They want to talk negotiations. They want to talk globalism, international organizations. President Trump speaks through action.
President Trump speaks through breaking the law.
And so our allies understand that, and they're stepping up, spending more.
Our allies are not stepping up to spend more. They are stepping up to help us. They are stepping up to spend more to defend themselves against us.
Adversaries understand that. So all around the world should take notice. American leadership is back. When he says something matters, it does. And we will take the necessary action with the full weight of the Department of War.
Which, by the way, has not been renamed to the Department of War legally. It is still the Department of Defense, just as it says, you know, here, the Secretary of Defense, because the Department of War, that has to go through Congress.
You know, Mr. Secretary, in the aftermath of this successful mission, there were tears of joy in Caracas, in Miami. Venezuelan refugees obviously thrilled to see Maduro out of power, his capture. You can understand why they've got...
Make no mistake, Maduro was a bad person. No mistake. He was a bad man.
Got all that oil, and yet the country itself has skyrocketing prices. His own people have been starving, and yet a meaningful number of Americans would wake up to this news and they'd be ripped back 20 years to another American president, another U.S. intervention. I'm thinking of the war in Iraq. And that led to a significant loss of U.S. treasure and of U.S. blood. Many of the president's own supporters tonight are wondering, how is this time around going to be different?
This is not different in any way, shape, or form. Just so you know, this is the exact same thing.
And how is it in the U.S. interest?
It's the exact opposite. I mean, we spent decades and decades and purchased in blood and got nothing economically in return. And
So, yeah.
President Trump flips the script. He says through strategic action, we can ensure that we have access to additional wealth and resources, enabling a country to unleash that without having to spend American blood. I mean, this was a bold and audacious move.
So he didn't even actually answer the question on how it was different, because it's not different. It's the exact same thing as Iraq 20 years ago or so.
But it was thought through. It was well orchestrated. Our military had time to set it up. He provided the resources, and then he took that bold stroke. And through it, we flipped that very dynamic. And Americans will benefit. Venezuela has a long history of being a rich and prosperous.
Americans are not going to benefit. The oil companies and the people who give hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to Trump are going to benefit, the billionaires and everything else. We're not going to benefit.
Country. It's been stolen away from its people by horrific leadership. We can do both, help them and help the United States in the Western Hemisphere by reestablishing the Monroe Doctrine. Peace through strength with our allies was demonstrated.
Okay, so peace through strength with our allies, the Monroe Doctrine. The Monroe Doctrine basically says that we will do anything we need to do to keep the Western Hemisphere safe from European problems or enemies. This was done because of World War II, World War I, the history that we have there and everything else. The Monroe Doctrine is something that is enacted is brought up by presidents and everything else, but not very often. Last time it was brought up was during the Cuban Missile Crisis, if I remember right. And it was brought up then because Russia was arming Cuba with, missiles and weapons and potentially nuclear weapons and everything else. So that was the last time it was done, and it was used, it was invoked, I should say. So that's what he's trying to do here. But the problem is while Venezuela is our allies with Russia and China and a lot of people that where they go and they distribute oil to them. So yeah, but they're not whatchamacallit. The Monroe Doctrine is not being used properly here.
Last night, and I think I know the hemisphere will benefit from President Trump's bold action.
All right, Mr. Secretary, we're going to ask you to hold there for one more commercial break. We're going to fit it in now to our viewers. You're watching the CBS Evening News. We'll be back in just a moment with one final question for Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. Stay with us.
Okay, so he is not. He's saying this is completely opposite of Iraq, and it's really, really not. So, yeah, this is exactly like Iraq. But there are some twists that have been thrown in here, which is absolutely fantastic, and we're going to get into those here in just a second. So we'll be right back. Restroom break real quick. Okay, and we are back. Okay, so next, I'm going to start talking about some of those wrenches that they are throwing into Maduro's plan, or Trump's plan. Okay, so Venezuela VP throws cold water on Trump's solution for running the country. Oh, so um, basically what's happening here is she is saying that Trump is not going to run the country because Trump said he was going to run the country. She's saying, I'm the VP. I'm going to run the country. You will not be running the country at all, which is great. That's great. Good for her. It's fantastic. She's standing up to it. The Supreme Court, the judicial body in Venezuela, has come out and said the same thing, that they will not allow Trump to take over the country. And there have started to be some protests in Venezuela. Yeah. So anyway, 40 dead in Venezuela. Okay. Let's see if I can find anything on this. I don't want New York Times. Yeah, don't want that. Civilian casualties. So at least 40 people have been reported dead in Venezuela. So, and that they are attacking. Here we go. Here we go. Hours after an audacious military operation that plucked Maduro from power, removed him from the country, Donald Trump said Saturday the United States would run Venezuela, at least temporarily, and tap its vast oil reserves to sell to other nations. So it's all about oil, as we know. Legal experts immediately raised questions about whether the operation was lawful. Of course. Like, what would we do if somebody came into our country and kidnapped our president and then said they transported him to their country and said, we're going to hold him on charges? Dude, we would the full, that is, yeah. Mm-hmm. Trump revealed his plans to exploit the leadership void to fix the country's oil infrastructure and sell large amounts to oil country. Maduro and his wife seized an operation. Yep. Move. Yep. There was no congressional approval whatsoever. Let's see this.
The military operation, which came without prior congressional approval or even notice, marks the climax of what has been mounting pressure by the Trump administration against the Venezuelan leader, who President Trump has accused of allowing drug traffickers to infiltrate America. Weeks of strikes on small boats officials say were carrying narcotics, the seizure of an oil tanker, and now the arrest of a sitting president.
This operation, known as Operation Absolute Resolve, was discreet, precise, and conducted during the darkest hours of January 2nd and was a culmination of months of planning and rehearsal, an operation that, frankly, only the United States military could undertake.
Officials say no U.S. service members were killed. An unsealed indictment shows Maduro and his wife face federal charges of conspiracy.
So my question is how does an American court hold a foreign president? It makes no sense.
And narco-terrorism.
As alleged in the indictment, he personally oversaw the vicious cartel known as Cartel de la Soledad, which flooded our nation with lethal poison, which the deaths of countless Americans.
He was last seen blindfolded on the U.S. way to New York. The future of Venezuela is less set in stone.
We don't want to be involved with having somebody else get in, and we have the same situation that we had for the last long period of years. So we are going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition.
So with that, the vice president has already come out and said, no, you're not running shit, dude.
President Trump also said he spoke with Venezuela's vice president, who has since been sworn in as the country's temporary leader. While the motive behind the strike, according to the Trump...
Yeah, and she's already been sworn in and she's doing her job and everything else, and he's already threatening her, which we're going to get into here in a little bit. So let me get this next one. So yeah, that's going to be... No, I don't want to. All right, so next. All right, let's see. Wow, this website is horrible. Doesn't even have a. Okay, so I voted Trump to lower prices. Or actually, you know what? Let's keep going with this. Okay, so with the Venezuela attack, Democrats begin to call for Trump's impeachment. Okay, so here's my take on this. You ready? You ready? Fuck these guys. This is what it fucking takes. They should have been calling for impeachment from day fucking one. This is this kind of bullshit is why people say that both sides are the same, because the Democrats are limp-dicked, worthless pieces of shit. They don't do anything. They talk a lot, but they don't actually ever do anything. We had like 30 Democrats vote not to impeach the president earlier. Yeah, it's a handful of Democrats are calling for President Trump to be impeached. He has so many reasons to be impeached that you don't even need to do anything. Like you could just, yeah, violation of the Constitution. Yeah, you know what? Here's the problem. Illinois congressional candidate Kat Abugahazela, the Gen Z content creator. That is his title. So he is running for Congress, and his claim to fame is a Gen Z content creator. It's not lawyer or attorney or anything else. It's content creator. That's how far we've fallen in this country. When our president is a convicted felon who is known not for anything good, but for being a reality TV show host. Our Secretary of Defense was a Fox News host. And now, this congressional seat in Illinois, a candidate is identified as a Gen Z content creator. That is who is calling for impeachment. That's like this is not a good thing, people. This is not a good thing. Okay, so we were talking about oh, okay, so here we go. We were talking about Trump threatens Venezuela's new leader with fate worse than Maduro. All right, so let's read this. In a telephone interview, President Donald Trump issued a not so veiled threat against new Venezuelan leader Delcy Rodriguez, saying that if she doesn't do what's right, she's going to pay a very big price, probably bigger than Maduro. What does that mean? Is he threatening to kill a sitting president of another country? Seems like that would be an impeachable offense. Trump made clear that he would not stand for Rodriguez's defiant rejection of the armed U.S. intervention that resulted in Maduro's capture. Delcy Rodriguez, she is the new president, at temporary whatever, she's the new president of Venezuela, and she is saying, fuck you to Donald Trump. During our call, Trump, who had just arrived at his golf club in West Palm Beach, was in evident good spirits, so he went to go golfing, and reaffirmed to me that Venezuela may not be the last country subject to American intervention. We do need Greenland, absolutely. So now he is threatening Greenland, which is a NATO ally. He is threatening to invade a NATO ally, a part of Denmark, as surrounded by Russian, and he described the island as surrounded by Russian and Chinese ships. And in describing Venezuela's feature, he signed a clear shift away from his previous distaste for regime change and nation building, rejecting the concerns of many in his MAGA base. You know, rebuilding there and regime change, anything you want to call it, is better than what you have right now. Can't get any worse. Yes, it can, as we've seen from. We have countless times in history, the most recent being Iraq and Afghanistan, of where we go in, we fuck shit up, and then we leave and stuff stays fucked up. The severe tone he took with Rodriguez contrasted with the praise he had offered her yesterday, hours after U.S. military forces attacked Caracas and captured Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, for criminal prosecution. I still don't understand the legalities of him being indicted in the United States as a sitting president of a foreign nation, of a sovereign nation, us going in there and kidnapping said president to bring him to the United States to stand trial. I don't understand how that works legally. Trump said after the attack, Rodriguez had privately indicated willingness to work with the United States, which Trump declared would temporarily run her country. So basically, he set her up as a patsy and saying, "Hey, you will do what I say." She's going to be a puppet, and she came out and said, "I'm not going to be your puppet," when she had the power, which is interesting. So we're going to get to this next part. Oh, they don't even have it. So yeah, here's my questions on these. So this next one, Marco Rubio. If you don't know, he is the Secretary of State. Venezuela strikes a law enforcement operation, not an invasion. What American law enforcement has jurisdiction in Venezuela? I don't know which one. So, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said on Sunday that the U.S. military activity in Venezuela this weekend did not require conditional approval because it was a law enforcement operation, not a prolonged invasion of a foreign country. The military is not a law enforcement department or branch of government or anything along those lines. If you want a federal law enforcement agency, that's the FBI. That is not the military. They are not a law enforcement agency. They are the United States military. They are the big stick that we hold behind us when negotiating. Rubio defended the operation against claims that it was illegal. He said it wasn't necessary to notify Congress because this is not an invasion. We didn't occupy a country. This was an arrest operation. This was a law enforcement operation. He was arrested on the ground in Venezuela by FBI agents. FBI agents do not have jurisdiction outside of the United States. He was read his rights and removed from the country. I want to know, in what legality does the United States FBI have jurisdiction in Venezuela? That's what I want to know. I want to talk to a lawyer who can explain this to me like I'm 5. That's what I'd like. U.S. forces carried out a stunning operation overnight and a Saturday morning to capture yada yada. The covert operation has been in the works since late summer, followed by months of threats and dozens of strikes on suspected narco-terrorists. Of course, we know that. Rubio said the arrest resistance from the Pentagon because obviously this is not a friendly territory. Arrest resistance? How about you? Yeah. So in order to arrest him, we had to ask the Department of Defense to become involved in the operation. The Department of Defense went in. They hit anything that was a threat to the agents, including, as we have learned, an apartment building filled with civilians. That was apparently a threat to this operation. And they hit anything that was a threat on the way out. Rubio said Congress could not be notified for practical reasons. You can't congressionally notify something like this for 2 reasons. Number one, it will leak because the Secretary of Defense has not leaked any classified information over Signal Chat, right? And number 2, it's an exigent circumstance. It's an emergent thing. You don't even know if you're going to be able to do it. We didn't know if all the things that had to line up were going to line up at the same time in the right conditions. Now, exigent situations are one thing, but yeah, this was not something that needed to be done. It had to be the right place, the right time, with the right weather, and all things like that. So these are very difficult to notify, but the number one reason is operational security. How are you going to talk about operational security when you have your Secretary of Defense who is leaking classified information over a Signal Chat with reporters in the chat? Yeah. And also we have reports that that news organizations actually knew about the operation before, and then they withheld the information from the American public. So yeah, we can get into that. That's a whole other debate. But all right, so now we've got Marco Rubio, again, the Secretary of State. In the 21st century, under the Trump administration, we're not going to have a country like Venezuela in our own hemisphere in the sphere of control. So we got to listen to this to see what the hell he's talking about.
The president used the word oil 20 times in this press conference. You talked about these tremendous oil assets that Venezuela has. But the president's last envoy to Venezuela, Elliot Abrams, is publicly arguing that you know better than the policy you're backing. He said, quote, Venezuelan plutocrats or U.S. oil executives seem to be coming to Mar-a-Lago and whispering about how easy life would be if we just made a deal with the regime once Maduro was gone. Is that what happened here?
No, that's not what happened here. What happened here is that we arrested a narco trafficker who's now going to stand trial in the United States for the crimes he's committed against our people for 15 years.
My question is what jurisdiction do they have to arrest a sitting president of another country? Could we go to France and arrest their prime minister? Could we go get the prime minister of the UK? Can we arrest the king in the UK, in Great Britain? Yeah.
Years. And the person who helped him, of course, his wife, who was co-located with him, so she was arrested as well. That's what happened here. As far as oil, look, oil is critical, not just to fueling economies all over the world. It's critical to Venezuela's future. Their oil industry is completely destroyed. It's destroyed all those oil fields that used to produce a lot
Right.
and wealth for their country and their people. Those things are decrepit. They're bankrupt. They need to be reinvested in. It's obvious. They do not have the capability to bring up that industry again. They need investment from private companies who are only going to invest under certain guarantees and conditions. That has to go to the benefit of the Venezuelan people. Right now, all of that wealth is stolen. It's stolen and it goes into the hands of oligarchs around the world and the oligarchs inside of Venezuela. A handful of people benefit from it. The people don't benefit from it. On top of that, it's very simple, okay? In the 21st century, under the Trump administration, we are not going to have a country like Venezuela in our own hemisphere, in the sphere of control and the crossroads for Hezbollah, for Iran, and for every other malign influence in the world. That's just not going to exist.
Okay, so here's what he's saying. And here I'll give you an example. Have you ever been working on a project? If you're an adult, watching your children work on a project. If you're a kid, you've been working on a project. Your parents, let's pretend you're a kid. You're working on a school project. Your parent walks by and goes and starts criticizing you, saying you're doing it wrong. And eventually they just go and shove you aside and say, let me do it. I can do it better. That's exactly what's happening here. The problem is Trump is a child. The United States government right now is a child, shoving aside another child and saying, I can do better. That's exactly what's going on here. So, yeah, Marco Rubio, here's the problem. You ready? Every single one of these people who are involved in this need to be arrested. They need to be tried. And they need to be thrown in jail forever. Deep dark hole, never allow them to return. So now we're going to listen to Democratic Senator Chris Murphy talk about the Secretary of State and DUI Secretary Pete Hegseth.
Democrats are demanding.
Let's see how this one goes. Now, this is a CNN, so it's going to be, we're not going to listen to the whole thing, but we're going to skip around a little bit. So here we go.
Democrats are demanding answers from the Trump administration, saying top officials lied to them about ousting Nicolas Maduro and questioning whether the president violated the Constitution by attacking Venezuela without congressional approval.
Yeah, they're worried about congressional approval, not about, the blatant violation of international law.
With me now is a member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Democrat Chris Murphy of Connecticut. Thank you so much for being here.
Certainly.
What is your reaction to this operation?
Well, I mean, clearly this is wildly illegal. This is a president who has been operating illegally since he was sworn into office, stealing from the American people, seizing spending.
Okay, so let's look here. Senator Chris Murphy, United States Senator. Let's see, let's go to his Wikipedia. Let's see what his education background is. Is he a lawyer? Most of these people are, but early life education, okay, he is a lawyer. So he is going to know, let's see, student by Juris Doctor degree from the University of Connecticut School of Law. So he's a lawyer. He knows the law.
Power.
What's illegal?
Now dragging America into a war overseas. The president cannot run a military operation of this size, cannot invade a foreign country without coming to Congress first, without allowing the American public to weigh in. America doesn't want this war. Nobody asked for this because it has nothing to do with American national security. And I think that's the most important conversation.
Yes, it had nothing to do whatsoever with American national security. The whole drug thing was totally made up and totally fake and false. So yeah, it had nothing to do with national security whatsoever. Venezuela is not and is not a threat to the United States national security.
To have. Listen, Venezuela is not a security threat to the United States. They're not threatening to invade us. There is no terrorist group like Al Qaeda operating there that has plans to attack the United States. To the extent that you care about the drug trade, yes.
Maybe I should be a senator since I know all this as well.
They produce drugs, but those drugs go to Europe. Fentanyl is the drug that's killing Americans. That's not coming from Venezuela. Venezuela produces cocaine. 90% of it is not coming to the United States. This seems to be mostly about oil and natural resources. Donald Trump's entire foreign policy is corrupt. Russia, the Middle East, and now Venezuela.
I will say, Mr. Senator here, you're using some strong language, and I like it. I fucking like this language. I like it when senators do this, and he's a Democrat, which makes it even better. I like this guy so far.
Is all about making money for his friends. And Wall Street, the oil industry, they can make a lot of money off of Venezuela if they run it. You saw within hours of the invasion, the announcement of a group of Wall Street investors, energy industry investors, planning a trip to Venezuela to make money off of this invasion, off of this ouster. So unfortunately, once again, you're seeing that this president's foreign policy, the invasion of Venezuela, the ouster of Maduro, is about making his crowd filthy rich. It has nothing to do with American national security.
Can I just go back to the legality and the point that you made about needing to come to Congress first? You know that for decades, Congress has let Democratic and Republican presidents sort of go for it on military actions. I mean, look at
presidents are allowed to use the military for small actions, such as bombing if we have an imminent threat. We know we have intelligence that says we have an imminent threat from a terrorist group, and we can get rid of that threat by bombing a training camp where they are assembling. The president can do that without congressional approval. It's a small operation comparatively, okay? And the president can 100% do that. And he has that too, and that is a national security thing. He does not have to inform Congress before he does it, but he does have to make sure that they do know afterward. And he does have to tell them why he did it, but he doesn't have to justify small operations like that. This was not a small operation.
President Obama in Libya. And so it's not new that Congress has become, frankly, impotent on issues and matters of war.
Congress is like, as she says, impotent. Yeah, Congress are a bunch of limp dick fucks.
That's absolutely true. And Congress needs to own its own role in allowing a presidency to become this lawless. The fact of the matter is that the president's justification makes no sense here. He says that this was just a law enforcement operation. Well,
like I said, maybe he'll say it, but I want to know what American law enforcement agency, because the military is not a law enforcement agency. What law enforcement agency has jurisdiction? They said the FBI is the one who arrested him, but the FBI doesn't have jurisdiction in Venezuela.
There are people with warrants all over the world. That doesn't give the President of the United States the power to launch a $1 billion invasion of those countries to bring a fugitive to justice. Yes, Congress should have stepped in and either authorized or prohibited President Obama's actions in Libya. Yes, the United States Congress has sat on the sidelines to allow presidents to become more and more powerful in foreign policy, but that doesn't mean that it suddenly gives a imprimatur of legality to this massive invasion of a foreign country that the American public didn't ask for.
You know, there's no question that Maduro was a destabilizing force, not just in
Maduro was
Venezuela,
a bad dude.
in the region. And there are people celebrating in the streets all over South America and Venezuelan expats abroad. So is it fair to say that there is some benefit in Maduro not being in power?
But what changes? I mean, you just heard Senator Cotton effectively not be able to explain who's running the country now. Delcy Rodriguez is a very powerful figure in her own right, handpicked by Maduro. Russia and China still provide enormous support to that country. What changes? Why would Venezuela stop its export of drugs, its harassment of U.S. interests in the region? There's really no explanation for how American interests are changed at all with a Rodriguez administration that right now seems to be intent on carrying through and carrying forward the policies of Nicolas Maduro.
So that goes to what I was saying earlier, as far as Rodriguez. Dulce Rodriguez. She was the vice president who was sworn in. She is now the president pro tem. Is that what the proper term? She's the acting president, either way, but she has the power right now. And so does she, since she was handpicked by Maduro, she has the same philosophy, same ideas as far as what she's going to do with the country and everything else as Maduro. She has told Trump, you will not run our country, because Trump said, we're going to run the country. And she has said, you're not running our country. So she is standing up and saying, no way, sir. And Trump threatened her with a fate worse than Maduro's. So he is now threatening her because she is saying, she's standing up to the bully. And yeah, is he going to arrest her too until, oof, man.
In 2019, you wrote an op-ed and you called for Maduro to be gone. You said, let's get one thing straight. There should no longer be any debate about Maduro's lack of democratic legitimacy. The Trump administration is right to put restoring Venezuelan democracy at the center of our approach to this crisis. A return to a stable democracy is in the interest of the Venezuelan people and the United States and the hemisphere. We don't know what's going to happen with regard to the civilian leadership there. Tom Cotton was just here saying that he hopes that there are democratic elections. Isn't that what you want?
Well, the rest of that article right, was a criticism of President Trump's early moves to saber rattle around regime change. Listen, there are evil, brutal dictators all over the world.
Putin being
that
one.
does not give the American president the right to invade those countries.
Correct.
In large part because we have seen how this script plays out. I watched an interview with Senator Cotton. You asked him what the difference was between Iraq and Venezuela. He didn't say the difference was we aren't going to invade Venezuela like we invaded Iraq. He said that if we invade Venezuela, which may be part of the president's plan, it's going to go really well. Over and over again, we have seen these warmongering neocons, many of which have influence in this White House, cheerlead us into war under the guise of removing a very bad man. That ends up getting a lot of Americans killed. And if this is really just about the oil, if this is really just about the natural resources, if this is just about getting a bunch of Donald Trump's friends on Wall Street even richer, I don't think there's a single American family who would support having their son or daughter put into harm's way to defend the interests of Wall Street. This is once again American oil interests, American financial interests coming before the actual national security interests of the United States.
I do want to ask about a briefing that the Secretary of State and Defense held with senators. You were there last month about Venezuela. Can you talk about what they said and whether or not that actually bore out?
Well, I can certainly.
Okay. All right. So there you have it. Yeah, totally legal. Yeah. So with this, okay, now we got some really, really interesting stuff. Let me pull this, see if I can pull this up. Some of these websites do not like any of this. Okay, so, well, let me get through this. Oof. Okay, so next we're going to talk about Venezuela's response to some of this going on. Once this ad finishes here in just a few seconds. And one of the things that they're doing is they are cutting oil production. So yeah, this should be interesting. Okay, let's see here.
Venezuela's state-run oil company PDVSA has begun cutting crude production. The company is running out of storage capacity due to an ongoing U.S. oil blockade. PDVSA's move includes shutting down oil fields or well clusters as onshore stop.
So basically, they got too much oil that they can't move because of the United States in the Caribbean.
Mount. Caracas is in a political crisis under an interim government after President Nicolas Maduro and his wife were captured by U.S. forces on Saturday. Oil exports, Venezuela's main source of revenue, are now at a standstill following a U.S. blockade on tankers under sanctions and a seizure of 2 crude cargoes last month.
So if you didn't know, we did the same thing to Cuba, and it actually, we put up a blockade and everything else, and it actually destroyed their economy. They're still suffering because of it.
Shipments by U.S. giant Chevron bound for the United States had been an exception, as the company has a license from Washington, but weekend data shows that even those have now stopped. U.S. President Donald Trump said Saturday that an oil embargo on the country was in full force. Venezuela's oil minister, Delcy Rodriguez, who is now the country's interim president, said last month that the country would continue producing and exporting crude despite the U.S. measures. But the U.S. pressure has forced PDVSA to store oil in vessels since late December and slow down cargo deliveries at its main port. If loaded tankers cannot depart, company executives and experts view more output cuts as unavoidable. Oil prices drifted lower Monday despite the turmoil, as adequate global supplies offset worries about disruption in Venezuela.
Okay, so they're cutting their production because they can't move it. It's a really simple thing. So that's just how it goes. Now, with that, we're gonna look at this other one here. Oh, no. Let me get this going. Okay, wow, this is horrible. Oh man, some of these websites, I swear. So anyway, we're gonna shift focus here a little bit. So there are injured troops, right? From Maduro capture. Operation have been flown to San Antonio. If you don't know, we have Brooks Army Medical Center here. It's a very large facility that does quite a bit for the military. Briefings of Monday will include select shares. A small number of troops sustained minor injuries and are recovering, which is fine. Some inter-service members have been flown to San Antonio. Indicated a plane from Puerto Rico flew directly to San Antonio on Saturday, believed to carry wounded soldiers. Said today that troops are in good shape. We've reached out to Brooke Army Medical Center, Lackland Air Force Base, and the Pentagon for further comment. I don't know why they would go to Lackland. Lackland got rid of Wilford Hall, or Big Willie it was called, year or two ago now. It was torn down, but they built an ambulatory clinic, and they transferred all of the hospital, pretty much all of the hospital functions to Brooke Army Medical Center on Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio downtown. It's just a little bit from me. I've been there tons of times. My wife used to actually work at BAMC, and I went there quite often. Next, we're going to look at some news about AI. So Goldman Sachs warns that 2026 will be the year AI quietly wipes out millions of jobs even without a recession. Okay, so AI is expected to cause another round of job losses in 2026 as companies continue expanding automation to cut their operating costs. According to Goldman Sachs. So jobs at risk, jobs that involve repetitive, predictable, and rule-based tasks face the highest risk of automation. These include many administrative roles, customer service jobs, and certain professional service positions. Of course. Activities such as answering common customer questions. Okay, you know what? There are times when I just want to, if you go to a company's website and you have, instead of talking to somebody, they got that little bubble in the bottom right hand corner, and you can just click it and ask a very basic question, like how do I pay my bill, whatever. Then cool, I get that. That's want to tie up a person. But when you start getting into complex problems, I've had this ago, the AI doesn't know how to respond because they can't handle the complex issues. And you need to talk to a person, but it takes so fucking long to get through. Because they go and they cut it. They cut these people. Companies require fewer employees to perform these tasks, so processing paperwork, scheduling meetings, and reviewing standard contracts. That sounds iffy. At the same time, new job opportunities are emerging in areas linked to AI, roles in AI development, data management, system oversight, cybersecurity, so college, higher end positions. They demand very different skills and training from the roles being phased out. Correct. If you are a secretary whose role is being phased out for AI because you do a secretary's job, you're not going to be able to automatically step into monitoring AI, right? Unless you already have a degree in that and everything else, you're not going to be able to just step into it. Creates a challenging transition. Not everyone who loses a job can move into these positions. Correct. Employers face their own difficulties. They must balance cost savings with the need. No, fuck you. Fuck companies. Fuck the companies. Productivity from gains from AI may take years to fully spread across the wider economy. Until then, many companies appear to absorb social and organizational pressure that comes with major work. If it's going to take years, then you're going to have years of these people with no jobs that are going to get riled up. It won't stand for that. So that could definitely turn into something. So here you go. This is from Arkansas, and I've done quite a few videos on this type of stuff, but this is about Star City, Arkansas, and this says in Lincoln County, Arkansas, which is one of the poorest regions in the United States, where abandoned storefronts line the town square, residents are discovering that voting for change doesn't pay the bills. Yes, this is a fuck around and find out segment. Donald Trump captured 74% of the vote in 2024. So 3/4 of these people voted for Trump. Nearly a year later, his supporters are asking where the Okay, so this is just another story of uneducated, poor people who voted for Trump because they're uneducated and they're poor. And so they didn't understand what they were voting for. They're uneducated, uninformed voters. It's that simple. I'm not saying they're stupid. I'm just saying they're uneducated and poor. Wage growth for the poorest quarter of Americans has nearly halved. Food bank demand has surged. Middle-class families are now lining up at food banks, including members of the military, lining up at food banks. Farmers are going bankrupt while corporations are making profits. That's because small farmers can't absorb the losses that large companies can. It's that simple. Healthcare. Okay, so here we go. Health insurance subsidies have expired. They have officially expired. Average Affordable Health Care Act plan is expected to rise 114% to just under $2,000 per year. Congressional Budget Office estimates 3.8 million people will lose health insurance entirely. This is going to be the Achilles heel for Republicans because Republicans are mostly in poor states and they are mostly going to be the ones to suffer from lack of health care, because they don't understand that just because their healthcare says United Healthcare or anything along those lines, it's still getting cut. It was still through the ACA. It slashes SNAP food assistance, kicking 2.4 million people off the program. So yeah, then that $2,000 check, voters are waking up. It's too late. I'm sorry. Well, it's not too late, but the problems are going to expand exponentially before they get better because of their vote. They fucked around and voted for Trump, and now they're finding out why that was a bad vote. No matter who you vote for, the system is designed to keep you working harder for less. Of course. The American dream isn't dead. It was sold off to the highest bidder. Question is now, what are we going to do about it? So anytime anything like this has happened in human history, if you go look through it, this kind of wealth gap, this kind of abuse of the majority of people, this kind of destruction of a middle class has only been resolved one way, and that is 100% through revolution and a complete government change. So yeah, So let's look at some more local news here. Oh, what is this? Okay. So if you're here in San Antonio, this one's for you. Bexar County Precinct, Balcones Heights Police opt into immigration informant. Oh, right. Bexar County law enforcement agencies now have formal authority to assist in federal immigration enforcement. Wow, with ICE. So Bexar County Sheriff's Office are... Oh, Texas Department of Justice and Precinct 3 Constable have adopted the most expansive version of federal government. Okay, so in a press release, Department of Homeland Security. So, okay, yep, they did. I remember those. State level Governor Greg Abbott signed his own executive order shortly after President Trump's directing all appropriate agencies to assist federal actors working under the direction of Trump while carrying out functions. Houston, by the way, is the #1 place for ICE arrests. So Bexar County is now Trump County. And it's all about money. All about money. Yep. So I would love, all right, if you are in San Antonio or the surrounding area, I can get pretty much anywhere around here pretty quick on my motorcycle. If you are here and you see ICE operating, hit me up. Hit me up. Right? You can DM me anywhere. I got my phone on TikTok, probably the quickest. But you can hit me up anywhere. Tell me. I want to know. So, yep, let's see what else we got here. Okay, yeah, it's kind of all boring stuff. Let's go. United States. Let's look here. What do we got? U.S. capture Maduro tests limits of Chinese diplomatic push. Yes, correct. So China has come out and said that they do not support this in any way. Let's see. Incognito window. Is this going to work for Reuters? Okay, so let's see.
Deposed Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is due in a U.S. court Monday after his weekend capture by American forces. U.S. President Donald Trump said Sunday that he leaves open the possibility of another incursion if Washington doesn't get its way with Venezuela's interim.
So President Trump is threatening Venezuela, saying, do what we tell you to, or we're going to invade you.
Government.
You know, we were ready for a second wave. We were all set to go, but we don't think we're going to need it.
Trump warned Venezuela must cooperate with U.S. efforts to open its oil industry and stop drug trafficking. He also threatened military action in Colombia and Mexico and said Cuba's communist regime.
So Colombia, Mexico, and Cuba are now being threatened as well as Venezuela.
Looks like it's ready to fall on its own. The remarks came as Maduro prepares to face drug charges in New York. Prosecutors accuse him of directing cocaine routes, using the military to protect shipments, and sheltering violent trafficking groups. The charges, which were first filed in 2020, were updated to include his wife, Celia Flores, who is accused of ordering kidnappings and murders. Washington calls Maduro's seizure a law enforcement mission, but Trump hinted at broader goals.
The country is a mess. It's been horribly run. The oil is just flowing at a very low level, much lower than, even if it was badly run, it should have more income, more oil than what they're doing. So we're going to have the big oil companies go in. They're going to fix the infrastructure. And they're going to invest.
Okay, I have a question. Where is the cut on his ear from the bullet, apparently, that hit him?
Invest money. We're not going to invest anything. We're going to just take care of the country.
Trump also weighed in on whether Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez, now acting leader, was actually running the country.
Don't ask me who's in charge, because I'll give you an answer and it'll be very controversial.
What does that mean?
Yes, we're in charge.
Have you spoken with her?
We're in charge.
On Monday, the acting president said her government was prioritizing a move towards respectful relations with the United States, having earlier criticized the raid on Saturday as an illegal grab for the country's national resources. On the ground, Caracas saw pro-Maduro rallies.
Here is the great motorized force of Caracas. We took to the streets of Caracas to tell the world to raise their voice about the kidnapping of our president. And we want him back, damn it. Long live the homeland, and long live Maduro.
Meanwhile, the UN Security Council meets Monday to discuss the attack, which Russia and China have condemned. Secretary General Antonio Guterres said the U.S. move sets a dangerous precedent.
Yeah, it sets a dangerous precedent. Of course, it sets a dangerous precedent. This is basically the United States saying, if you don't do what we want, and you have something we want, and you don't give it to us, we're going to take your toy. We're going to go in with our military, and we're going to take your toy. That's how it works. But they're not going to do it to China, because China will fuck us up. At the very least, economically. They're not going to do it to Russia because Trump is a Russian asset. So that's that. We're not going to. That's not a very good one. Oh yeah. So let's see. Mante. All right. So what's going on here? Let's see here. What is this? U.S. Secret Service said a man was taken into custody after allegedly causing property damage at Vice President J.D. Vance's home in Ohio. Looks like threw some rocks through the windows. The man was detained by Secret Service personnel and taken into custody by Cincinnati police. Unoccupied at the time of the incident. His family were not in Ohio. Okay, so looks like he threw some rocks at the windows. All right, did some damage. Was it rocks or was it causing property damage, including breaking windows? But what did he use to break those windows? Doesn't say. Okay. Trial begins. Oh, okay. Okay, so here we go. Let's talk about this. Trial begins for officer accused of failing to protect children during Uvalde shooting. Corpus Christi, one of the first police officers to respond to the shooting in Uvalde, Texas, goes on trial Monday on charges that he failed to protect children during the attack when authorities waited more than an hour to confront the game. Okay, so this is going to bring up a lot of things, like the Supreme Court has ruled that police have no responsibility to put their own lives at risk to protect others, which totally goes against what you would think a police officer is there for, right? To protect and serve their community. So yeah, we'll see how this goes. Adrian Gonzalez, former Uvalde schools officer, faced 29 counts of child abandonment or endangerment in a rare prosecution of an officer accused of not doing more to stop a crime and protect lives. Teenage gunman killed 19 students, 2 teachers at Robb Elementary. Nearly 400 officers from state, local, and federal law enforcement agencies responded to Cool, but 77 minutes passed. Yeah, if you watch the videos, these guys are fucking pussies. They should all be don't get me started on what should happen to these people. Gonzalez, former police chief Pete Arredondo were among the first on the scene, and they were the only 2 officers to face criminal charges over slow response. Arredondo's trial has not yet been scheduled. Charges against Gonzalez carry up to 2 years in prison if he is convicted. Okay, yep. He's pled not guilty. Yeah, based on the Supreme Court ruling, he's going to plead not guilty. Police and Governor Abbott initially said swift law enforcement action killed Ramos to save lives, but that version quickly unraveled as families described begging police to go in. Yeah, they've got video of this shit. Like these dumb shits don't realize before they talk, they need to go and look at the viewership, right? Look at viewers, because they don't look at the videos, look at social media. Nothing goes without being on camera nowadays. If you're out and about and everything else, chances are somebody is recording you. State and federal reviews of the shooting cited cascading problems in law enforcement training communication. Yeah, of course. The law enforcement in the state of Texas is filled with pussies. You heard me. Every fucking DPS officer that arrived at this scene, which is over 400, are cowards. Yellow-bellied fucking piece of shit cowards. Every single one of you. Every one of you. Some family members of the victims have said more officers should be indicted. All of them. Every single one of them. Yep, they waited and allowed children and teachers to die. Correct. Sheriff's Deputy Scott Peterson was charged with failing to confront the shooter in that attack. It was the first such prosecution for an on-campus shooting, and Peterson was acquitted by a jury in 2023. Pussies. That was at Parkland. So, request for Gonzalez, the trial was moved about 200 miles southeast of Corpus Christi. They argue Gonzalez cannot receive a fair trial in Uvalde. Prosecutors did not. Yeah, you're not going to. No. It's only 15,000 people there. Yeah. Yeah, this guy, if it were up to me, there would be a whole lot more shit going down with that. There would be a lot of, yeah. Okay, Maduro would like to appear. That seems to be everything that's going on. Yeah, let's look at this. So Denmark in crisis mode as Trump sets sights on Greenland after Venezuela attack. Yep. So Trump threatened Greenland, which is held by the Dutch in Denmark, who is a NATO ally, and is Denmark a part of the EU as well? Yep, Denmark's the EU as well. So if Trump were to invade Denmark and try and take over the Greenland, then not only would they be attacking a NATO ally, but they would be attacking an EU member as well. Which, yeah, we need Greenland from the standpoint of national security, and Denmark is not going to be able to do it. I can tell you. Raised alarms in Denmark, responsible for the defense of Greenland. I have to say this very directly to the United States. It makes absolutely no sense to talk about the need for the United States to take over Greenland, the Danish Prime Minister said Sunday in Facebook. The Kingdom of Denmark, and thus Greenland, is part of NATO and is therefore covered by the alliance's security guarantee. We already have a defense agreement between the Kingdom and the United States today, which gives the United States wide access to Greenland. I would therefore strongly urge the United States to stop threats against a historically close ally and against another country and another people who, Greenland is there's no reason, right? Like there's no reason for this. Let's see why everybody wants a piece of Greenland.
President Trump has re-expressed his desire to take Greenland, this time refusing to rule out the possibility of using military or economic coercion to achieve his goals. It's an idea he's been pushing since 2019, when he first suggested the northern coast of Greenland. But efforts from the Pentagon forced it to back out. Meanwhile, Russia has been reopening old Soviet military bases across the Arctic since 2015, including Nagurskoye, located just 600 miles off the northern coast of Greenland. So how did this island with a population of just 56,000 and an ice sheet covering about 80% of the territory gain such geopolitical significance? And why is President Trump so eager to acquire it? Greenland's location is a major factor behind its rising prominence in global geopolitics. To start, the sea around Greenland is part of what's known as the GI-UK Gap, a strategic transit route located between Greenland, Iceland, and the United Kingdom. Securing this choke point has been essential in America and NATO's efforts to contain Russia's naval forces and stop a potential threat.
That was a connection or a waterway that would allow the Soviets coming out of their Murmansk bases and naval bases to project naval power into the Atlantic to cut the United States off from its allies in Western Europe during the Cold War. This is still an arena of very active undersea activities. The Russians have been modernizing and continue to put at the forefront of all of their defense dollars, at least in their Navy, in their nuclear submarine and undersea capabilities. Now the potential of adding in the Chinese Navy is not something to be forgotten.
As China and Russia expand their influence in the Arctic, Greenland's location has also become vital to America's ballistic missile warning system.
When we were locked in a Cold War with the Soviet Union, the bases in Greenland, which were radar as well as air bases, Thule being the most notable, allowed us to have early warning of a Soviet missile launch or bomber attack against the United States.
Today, thanks to a 1951 defense treaty with Denmark, the U.S. still operates one military base in northern Greenland, renamed Bidufik Space Base from Thule Air Base.
Now, in the recent past, with China's rise and it tripling the size of its ICBM ballistic missile arsenal, once again, Greenland plays a national defense role because of its geography. And that base is extremely important to the defense of the United States and, quite frankly, of North America, to include Canada.
Greenland's location also poses a unique economic opportunity thanks to its proximity to Arctic shipping.
Okay. I'm not going to watch that whole thing. But yeah, all right. Either way, yeah, quit talking about Greenland, Trump, you stupid. The only reason All right, so the only reason Trump wants Greenland is because he is Putin's puppet, and Putin wants to go through there, as we just saw. So we'll see. Iran protests enter ninth day as Trump renews intervention. Okay, so let's see what's going on here. Minnesota investigators say child care centers accused of fraud are operating normally as governor drops re-election bid. Yeah, we've seen the video. It's already been disproved as being wrong. No evidence, anything else. All right, so I'm going to go with it that this Nick Shirley guy is a Republican plant, a MAGA plant, who was put there just so that they could eliminate a threat in Tim Walz by damaging him politically with fake misinformation and disinformation. And they used this Nick Shirley to do it. Promised him that he would get super popular and without having to come out as a MAGA operation. And so Tim Walz, they got rid of him. That's what they wanted. But like I said, we already know that this kid right here, Nick Shirley, this is misinformation. Complete misinformation. This shit's already been taken care of. So, yeah. Talked about Rubio. Cuba says 32 citizens killed in U.S. raid to arrest Venezuela's Maduro. 32 Cubans were killed. I guess they were there. All right. Okay, let's see what ABC says are 6 political things to watch. Midterm elections. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Okay, midterms. Contentious primaries will set up key races. Okay, no shit, Sherlock. Could congressional maps change even more? Well, we'll see. Governor races, Trump's agenda at the state level. Yep. Long road to 2028. Future of political parties. Garbage. That's a fluff piece. All right, let's see here. Oh, okay. People of Venezuela. Wow. Yeah, all sorts of. Oh, okay. Yeah, that was an AI generated picture. It's the real one. All right, folks. Well, we're going to get off of here, and I will get to editing all of this and getting it up. Just about 2 hours, not too bad. As long as there's a lot of stories going on. So I really appreciate everybody, and we will talk to you later.